delving into that peculiar practice of adjusting our clocks, daylight saving time. This ritual of moving our timepieces 1 hour ahead is far from recent. In fact, it finds its roots in ancient civilizations, where people would align their schedules with the sun's. But, the modern version we know today? Now, that was conceived in the late 19th century by a New Zealand entomologist named George Hudson, who yearned for extended evening light for his insect collecting. Funny, isn't it? The idea really took off during the World Wars, with Germany taking the first leap. This was done with energy conservation in mind, and a large number of countries, the US included, followed suit. Fast forward to our times, DST is a common observance in over 70 countries, influencing billions of lives. The start and stop dates do vary, but most countries have settled on similar timelines. And then there's the US, which has created its own standardizations with the Energy Policy Act of 2005. Yet, not everyone's on board. Certain states and territories in the US have chosen to sidestep DST and stick to standard time year-round. Hawaii, Puerto Rico, even most of Arizona have opted for this. Indiana, which used to be partially on DST, now fully embraces it. DST does bring with it an interesting debate. The prospect of more daylight, reduced need for artificial lighting, and thus decreased energy consumption are pretty appealing. But there are those who argue against it, citing potential health impacts, limited energy savings, and disruptions to natural lifestyle. But the real kicker, the true curiosity about DST, that is. Well, that's a story for another moment. I wonder, can you guess what it is? Let's find out soon enough. What's up, my amazing and curious folks? This is your host, Caesar, and I am thrilled to be here with you to explore today's topic. As always, I am joined by the fantastic Sonia, who's ready to dive deep into the depths of curiosity with us. Sonia, say hi to our listeners.
Hey everyone! Can't wait to discover today's fascinating subject with all of you.
That's the spirit. And remember, if you're as excited as we are to unravel mysteries, make sure to subscribe to the Curiosity Wonderland and hit that bell icon so you never miss a moment of curiosity. So, let's get started, shall we? So, let's delve deeper into the world of daylight saving time, or DST for short. A question that often pops up is, what is the point of it all? Now, isn't that intriguing? We've all been subjected to this practice, but how many of us have truly pondered its purpose? And why doesn't every region adhere to it? Hold on to your seats, because we're traveling back in time to the late 18th century, where this all started with one of the US's founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. He was serving as the US ambassador to France when he first conceived the idea of DST. Franklin noticed how many Parisians slept through the sunlit hours and used candles well into the evening. Now, here's the twist: he whimsically suggested using cannons to wake people early to conserve tallow and wax. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I'd prefer an alarm clock to a cannon. Despite the drastic wake-up call idea, it's believed he was jesting with his audience. But it was more than a century later that DST received serious consideration as a practical timekeeping method. Isn't that fascinating? A seemingly silly idea proposed in jest becoming an integral part of our lives today. So, let's delve into how DST works and what happens when we spring forward and fall back. But hey, let's take a moment here. I'd like to hear from you, our curious audience. What are your thoughts on daylight saving time? Have you ever wondered about its origins or its purpose? Are you finding this revelation as intriguing as I am? Make sure to hit the like button and share your thoughts with us. We've still got a lot to unravel here, so stay tuned. So, let's take a look at how DST differs around the globe. As we know, our Earth's hemispheres experience opposite seasons, so DST rules must be inverted too.
Oh, right. So when it's summer here in North America, it's winter in South America, and vice versa.
Exactly. In the Northern Hemisphere, we start DST between March and April, and it ends between September and November. On the other hand, in the Southern Hemisphere, DST starts between September and November and ends between March and April.
That's fascinating. But who decides these start and stop dates?
Great question. These dates are arbitrary, but over time, most countries have adopted similar guidelines. For instance, in the US, we follow rules established by the Energy Policy Act of 2005.
And those rules are?
According to it, DST begins in the US at 2 a.m. on the second Sunday in March, and it ends about 8 months later at 2 a.m. on the first Sunday in November.
So, do all states follow this?
Actually, no. The Energy Policy Act provides rules, but it doesn't require all states to follow them. There are exemptions. Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and most of Arizona chose to remain on standard time throughout the year.
That's interesting. And what about other countries?
Good point. Since its introduction, at least 66 countries have practiced DST, but some abandoned it for various reasons. European nations call it summertime and have been using it for decades, but they only standardized it in 1996. Their DST schedule runs from the last Sunday in March through the last Sunday in October.
You know, all this talk about daylight saving time reminds me of a funny incident from my childhood. I was about 8 or 9 and absolutely loved playing outdoors. But, like most parents, mine had a strict rule: I had to be home before the street lights came on. It was in the middle of summer, DST was in full swing, and I was out playing baseball with my friends. I remember looking up at the sky and seeing that it was still bright out. But then, I heard my mother calling out for me, and I was perplexed. I remember thinking, why is she calling me in? The street lights aren't on yet. So, I ran home, utterly confused. My mother explained that although it was still light outside, it was actually later than I thought because of daylight saving time. I was so thrown off, but it gave me a real-life understanding of what this concept was all about.
That's quite an adorable story. It just goes to show how deeply ingrained practices like DST are in our lives. Even when we don't fully grasp the concept, we feel its effects. So, let's get back to our discussion. Starting and stopping DST works the same way no matter the country. Typically, a popular start time is 2 a.m., and at that time, the clock moves forward 1 full hour. Conversely, when DST ends, the time from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. is actually repeated, making the day 25 hours long.
That's a bit mind-boggling, don't you think?
It is, indeed. But it's all in the service of harnessing natural daylight to reduce our need for artificial lighting in the evenings. This shift decreases energy consumption and allows us to take advantage of longer daylight periods during spring and summer. However, its actual energy savings and broader impacts remain debated. Let's delve into the history of daylight saving time. Believe it or not, the concept dates back to ancient civilizations, where daily schedules were adjusted based on the sun.
Wow, I had no idea it was that ancient.
The idea of modern DST, however, was first proposed in 1895 by George Hudson, a New Zealand entomologist who wanted more evening light for insect collection.
That's an unusual reason to propose something that impacts so many people globally.
It is, isn't it? But the idea was later championed by a British builder named William Willett in 1907. He wanted to reduce daylight wastage. DST really gained traction during World War I, when Germany adopted it for energy conservation purposes.
You know, I remember my grandfather telling me stories about how during the war, they used to save every bit of energy they could. I guess this was part of it.
Indeed. Many countries, including the US, followed Germany's lead, and the use of DST persisted during World War II for similar reasons. The US tried to standardize DST with the Uniform Time Act in 1966, but it has been adjusted several times since then.
It seems like the history of daylight saving time is a history of constant fine-tuning and adjustment.
That's a good way to put it. Despite the controversy and debates, DST is practiced today in over 70 countries, impacting billions of people. Its supposed energy-saving benefits are still debated, and some regions have even opted out due to health concerns.
It's a complex issue, isn't it? But its impact on our daily lives is undeniable.
There are quite a few arguments against daylight saving time, too. For instance, the biannual clock changes can disrupt our circadian rhythms, leading to sleep deprivation. Studies have even linked the transition to increased heart attacks, strokes, and depressive episodes.
That's so interesting. I remember feeling a bit off every time we had to adjust our clocks. I always thought it was in my head, but it seems like there's real science behind it.
Absolutely. Moreover, while DST was initially introduced for energy conservation, the actual savings today are debated. Modern lifestyles and technology might offset any reduction in lighting costs with increased use of air conditioning and heating.
Right, our electricity usage isn't just about lights anymore. We've got so many other appliances and devices that consume power.
Exactly. There can also be economic costs associated with DST. The clock change can disrupt schedules, resulting in decreased productivity. Updating computer systems, software, and automated equipment to handle the switch can be costly as well.
That's something I wouldn't have even thought about.
Then there's the complexity and confusion caused by DST. Not all countries or regions within countries observe DST, leading to confusion in international scheduling for businesses, airlines, and broadcasting. Even within countries that observe DST, there can be regions or states that opt out, leading to further inconsistencies and potential scheduling conflicts.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare. I can just imagine trying to schedule a meeting across multiple time zones with some observing DST and others not.
That's a good point. Lastly, critics argue that artificially shifting time disrupts our natural alignment with the sun's position, impacting our daily routines. Some places have actually chosen to be exempted from daylight saving time. For instance, Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and most of Arizona don't observe DST.
That's interesting. I wonder how it impacts their scheduling with places that do observe DST.
It can definitely lead to some complexity. And did you know that while Benjamin Franklin is often credited with conceiving daylight saving time, back in 1784, his proposition was largely in jest?
You're kidding. So, the whole idea started as a joke?
It seems that way. The idea of modern DST, as we've discussed earlier, was first proposed seriously by George Hudson in 1895. It's fascinating how much there is to know about daylight saving time. It's not just about adjusting the clock twice a year. Behind it lies a history of ideas, numerous debates, and a significant impact on our daily lives.
Absolutely, it seems like such a simple concept on the surface, but when you dig deeper, there's so much complexity.
Indeed. Seize the Daylight, The Curious and Contentious Story of Daylight Saving Time is an interesting book by David Prerau that delves into this topic further. From its inception as a jest by Benjamin Franklin to its implementation during the World Wars and onward, it explores the various aspects of this practice that we often take for granted.
I'll definitely have to give that a read. It's been really enlightening discussing this topic today. I've certainly learned a lot about daylight saving time that I never knew before.
Same here. It's always surprising to discover the intricacies of something we experience every year. This conversation has definitely given me a newfound appreciation for the complexities of time. So there we have it, folks. Daylight saving time is not just about adjusting our clocks and getting that extra hour of sleep. It's a practice with a rich history dating back to ancient civilizations, and it's meant to make better use of natural daylight, potentially reducing our dependence on artificial lighting and impacting billions of people around the world. Sure makes losing that hour of sleep feel slightly more purposeful, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it's been a light-filled journey unraveling the mystery of daylight saving time. Remember, knowledge is power, and you've got the power to light up someone else's day. Share this episode with your friends, and don't forget to blast the like button and drop us your thoughts in the comments.
Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts on daylight saving time. Are you a fan, or would you prefer to toss it into the annals of history? Let us know.
Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep those minds wide open.
Signing off for today, this is Caesar.
And Sonia. Thanks for tuning into Curiosity Wonderland. Goodbye, everyone.
We unearthed these fascinating facts from an article titled "What is the Point of Daylight Saving Time?" by William Harris, Kathryn Whitbourne, and Desiree Bowie on the HowStuffWorks site, posted on the 30th of October, 2023. You can find the full URL in the video description if you'd like to explore more on this topic. Now, off I go.